Tom Boorman. You can drink the water, dude.
No, I just was opening
Drink
the lid
the water.
to the noisy lid opening.
Nah. Thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Holy
yeah.
shit.
Yeah, sick
Stoked.
that. We got to ride the trails too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Perfect afternoon sunset sort of vibes.
I know it wasn't too bad for heat, which was good.
Yeah, I think we got lucky. It's good.
No, it's good to have you in, man. Like I was saying just before, like it's cool to have. I kind of geek out on the industry shit a little bit, and I sometimes feel not geek out, but like there's very few people that have been involved in the BMX shop world, and you're someone that ran Hell on Wheels for how long for? Must be.
It was just under 13 years when we
so
closed.
A long time.
07 to 2020, yeah.
So a long time, and it's cool to get, other people's just perspective and their thoughts, and even just every time we catch up, we kind of shoot the shit on it. It's been always been pretty cool, like really friendly.
Yeah, it's nice to
because we're mates anyway. But then to have that like, oh fuck, how's things going? Like, what can we do and shit? Like, I think that's a pretty cool vibe to have.
Yeah, man. They always enjoy our chats. So
yeah.
Good.
But what's been happening? What's up?
Oh,
in your world lately?
Just sort of existing in my little 5-kilometer radius bubble in the Sydney's inner west. So it's working. I've got a 4-day-a-week job as a mechanic at a store called Omafeets, which is like a high-end sort of commuter sort of, they sell a lot of Surleys and a lot of like sort of adventure bike packing stuff and a lot of just like transport stuff like cargo bikes, electric bikes, stuff like that. But it's like nice stuff, which is really good. So we don't really work on junk and we don't really work on like road bikes either. So or kind of core mountain bike. It's just sort of very much like transport based.
Wow.
Which is really good. So and like really good crew. Like everyone's sort of around my age. It's a good independent store. Like just good. And it's pretty big. There's like sort of 14 staff or something.
Holy shit.
I'm a full-time mechanic, mainly just do a lot more wheel building, like just build that many. Like, have you ever heard of a roll-off hub? It's like a 14-speed German internal geared. It's like a gearbox. You have to do oil changes on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really so like it's like a $2,500 hub.
Holy fuck.
We build 5 to 10 of those wheels a week.
Wow.
And it's just people that just want to get rid of their derailleur and they want to have a high range. For touring sort of stuff and that sort of thing, and like a lot of dynamo builds for people can power their bikes with lights and phone chargers for their big touring trips and that sort of. So it's really cool shit. Like
that is cool.
I've learned a lot, which is cool. Like because I was a bike mechanic before starting Hell on Wheels. Yeah. From 04 to 07 when I worked at Maroubra Cycles, basically from when I was 18 to when I was sort of 22.
Crazy.
And it's almost like I hit pause on the regular bike mechanic world and then was in BMX world for the whole time I had the store, and then coming back to the rest of the greater sort of bike industry, it's been a lot of shit's changed, so it's pretty cool learning a lot of stuff that I didn't know existed, which is kind of fun. So that's cool. Do that 4 days a week, and then I guess Hell on Wheels now, since we closed the store in February 2020, is just appointment only sort of workshop where it's just people hit me up and they want me to build their wheels, or they buy a frame from here and then buy forks from there or whatever, and I need someone to put it together. So it's more like a lot of it's my old customers who I really don't want to give up those relationships. So it was like, I got to keep something going and keep the name alive because it's kind of a fun name, and just still be able to do shirts now and again and that sort of thing. So and that's cool. I share a workspace with Matt Holmes, who was my business partner in Hell on Wheels, and also he was Matt from 2020. A lot of you people would remember him from there, and that's cool. He's a graphic designer. He's in their sort of office hours, and then John Young, another friend Ollie, were sharing the space as well. And the last few episodes of the Head Angle podcast, we did it from that space, and that's how I sort of I was like, hey, there's a spare corner of the room. Can I put a workbench in? And like, because when we closed down the store, I had nowhere to put. I had the whole workshop's worth of tools, bike stands, like I had nowhere to store because I'm living in a kind of a granny flat sort of situation. It was all in the backyard under tarps. Everything's going rusty, and I was like, well, it'd be good to have a space. And when we first closed, it all happened. The closing down happened so quickly. I didn't really have a plan. It was like, what do I do? So I was just kind of like treading water, trying to figure out what the next move was, for myself and Hell on Wheels. So it was like, just keep all my shit in case, and then maybe I'll figure. And I was trying to did a little bit of work from home, but didn't work. I was like, had my work stand out on the under the clothesline, like just trying to. I think the only bike I built was LC, photographer LC.
Oh yeah.
He got a frame from somewhere, and I put together for him in the backyard. And then it started raining, and I was like, this is dumb. I need a place to set up.
Yeah.
So
dude, that's cool though.
in a nutshell, that's sort of where I'm at. So one day, sometimes 2 days a week, it's like BMX centric, just workshop, which is great.
Cool.
But no longer having the retail space and that sort of thing is definitely been a big change. So
how do you find the workshop appointment thing working?
It's really good. Just email, Instagram.
Cool.
I can kind of pick and choose how much work I want to take on. Some weeks it's chill, I don't really have much to do. Other weeks it's just like, all right, I got heaps on, I got to go in there some evenings after I finish at the other job. But it's nice because having a shop is fantastic. It's a hub. It's a place where people meet. Everyone knows where you are all the time. It's sort of like they can rely on you. But this is a bit of a different. Took a bit of getting used to in terms of like answering messages and being like explaining to people like you can't just turn up. Like I've got to arrange the time to meet you there and that sort of stuff. So like that was a bit tricky at first because some people just like, what's the address? I'll bring my wheels over to you. And it's like, well, it's Wednesday. I'm not going to be in there till Friday. And like, it's, like I tried to do a couple of social media posts sort of explaining the setup.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
But it's, some people might have missed it. So, and also, I had the store for so long, like almost 13 years. So it's like people just kind of forget. Like, because I wasn't like, I'm done, see you later. I was kind of like alluded to. I'm like, I'm not going to put it to bed yet. I want to do something, but I didn't know what yet because it all kind of, we had to close so sort of abruptly. It was a very quick process. So I kind of was, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. But like, I was like, I'll do something. But through everything, I do miss the shop side of things, like having a hub and I get to see my friends every day, and people come in, they shoot the shit. Like I'd fix their bikes, or get to talk about bikes all day and read magazines and watch DVDs and like all that nerdy BMX stuff that I love. Not having that sucks, and that was a hard. Like I really miss that still. I don't miss it as much as I used to, but it has made me realize that I probably enjoyed the working on the bikes the most out of having the shop for so long. I think working on bikes was my favorite thing. Like interactions were good and people were amazing and really made great friends through it and stuff like that. But I think I just like working on bikes. Really do. Cool. So
Oh man, it's an interesting one. The idea of like Hell on Wheels. There's a few shops over the period, my lifetime, that have stood out as more than just a shop. Hell on Wheels being one of them, and it is really cool that you've still just continued, at least in that, like the name, the workshop, that like you're still doing it. So I think that it is important to still have your like hands on BMX, because you're obviously BMXer, so you want to continue doing it, but it's kind of like when FBM closed, you know what I mean? Like, even if they just bring out T-shirts once every year or something.
Yeah, people are going to buy them, and I'll buy 10 FBM shirts tomorrow. If they release them and stuff. So
it's
with thank you for the compliment.
No worries, man. Like, it's just because so Hell on Wheels opened. You said 2007.
August 07. We got the keys sort of June, July.
Yeah.
And that was,
Because I remember coming to BMX games in Sydney, and you guys had a stall there, I think.
That was 08.
That's right.
That was awesome. That was, because you guys all turned up. You had like a rental. I remember this. This popped in my head the other day. You guys turned up in like a high ace van, and you had everything packed into like plastic containers, pre-organized. And I remember we hired a fucking 2-ton truck and literally took our whole shop. We took our glass cabinets. We didn't know what to do. Like, I don't know, like, this is going to be big or is it going to be small? Don't know what to expect. let's just take everything, like, and see what happens. And I remember Riss actually, because when it all was over, you guys had packed up in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You're in the van. I think Riss bipped the horn. He's like, "Hey, hell on wheels. See you next time. Have fun packing up." We're like literally trying to lift the glass cabinets into the truck like idiots, But yeah, that was that comp was awesome.
Dude, it was sick.
I think we all sold a bunch of stuff and kids were frothing. Like, that was a really...
I know, what a time in BMX. Hey, BMX games is just fucking insane in terms of like the amount of people that were coming, just that vibe. But with the you were saying that you worked at the Maroubra Cycles and then opened the shop. Did it say, like, what was it that you were like, all right, I'm opening a BMX shop?
Well, it was mainly, Rob McCann, who I grew up riding with, we started riding together end of year 6, we've known each other a long time. Yeah. He worked at Maroubra Cycles as well. Mm-hmm. He was sort of sales role and also mechanic, and I was just in the workshop. Yeah. And we had just sort of started talking about it. Like, I was totally content being a mechanic, working on commuters and, shitty beach bikes, and, Maroubra had some sketchy characters with terrible bikes. And I was like, I'm earning money working on bikes. I'm happy as Larry, sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. And Rob was like, we could start a shop and we could make it awesome. Because, he's pretty in tune with, like, aesthetics, like, good bands, good clothing, good, just, sort of a little bit of skate sort of culture at the time, like stuff I had no idea about. Yeah. And we're like, okay, we started just sort of like at work every day, just sort of brainstorming, and we could do this and then he was better. Like, I knew Mike Daly and Matt Holmes a little bit, but didn't know them that well. But Rob knew Mike pretty well. Okay. Because he hung out with some of the older riders a little bit more than I did, like Rob Smith and Tim Lynch, that sort of older, that generation of Sydney Pro, which is, the old Vertex days. He knew those guys a bit better than I did. And Matt and Mike were going to take over Vertex. Oh, so crazy. When Vertex was closing, I think the owners offered the business. They were going to like give the business away for free. You just had to like take on the lease or and buy the stock in the shop. I'm not sure what the deal was. Holy fuck! A lot of different groups were talking about doing it, but I think Matt and Mike's the idea was have that as their hub to run the magazine from, have a store, make it a bit more BMXy. But then they realized the money for rebuilding the ramps, because Vertex was open, I don't know how many years, but at the Padstow location, the ramps didn't change. Like, it was great, really fun park, but the ramps didn't change the whole time it was open. So like, we got to freshen up, make new ramps, and it was going to cost a much money. Then I guess insurance, and it probably wasn't a feasible idea. So they had that in the back of their heads, and then I think Rob just got talking to Mike, and then Rob's like, hey, Daly wants to do a shop with us and Matt. So if we go 4 ways as opposed to just you and I, we've got, pool our sort of money and resources or whatever. And at first I was kind of like just along for the ride, because I was, I was 22, like we were young, like Rob's same age as me, but Matt and Mike were sort of in their 30s, that they're kind of like 11 or 12 years older than he and than Rob and I. So, and they had the magazine, and Mike still had Kick-Ass BMX at that point as well. So they had sort of industry ins and knowledge and stuff. And I was like, hell yeah, like let's, okay. And then it was like, okay, we got to choose a spot. And Mike was like, has to be Newtown, like has to be King Street. So if you remember, Mike's had a signature Dragonfly frame called the King Street. Oh, because he was right. Like, that's true. He was like the Newtown guy, because he was, him and that was like their scene, like, and we were young, and we just started going to pubs and stuff. We're like, wow, Newtown's crazy, So it made sense, and that's just sort of how it happened. And so we just kind of got together, had a couple of meetings at Mike's house, and we're like, we're having meetings? What the hell? Like, I'm sitting on the couch with Mike Daly and Matt Holmes, like talking about opening a shop, and then and I feel like 2007, getting a loan from the bank was so much easier than it is now. Like, it just like I just lied and said, I'm buying a new car. Give me, whatever, bunch of money, and it was on, so sure, far out. And then the idea was, I'd sort of be the main mechanic, and Rob would sort of be front of house, and Matt would be sort of art direction, website, that sort of stuff, and then Mike was more like the doing the annoying stuff, like the accounting and all the stuff that he's really good at. Yeah, and then it just sort of happened, and then it,
Crazy.
like we opened, and then it was fucking awesome. Like
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah.
Wow.
And next minute, we'd been there a few years, and it was, I mean, it was always Sydney's difficult, scene wise, and being so big and spread apart.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I couldn't believe working in my own shop, working on the cool, like I wasn't working on shitty mountain bikes and shitty road bikes and dealing with Maroubra crackheads. It was like people, my peers were coming in, and it was awesome, and we had to have events and video premieres and all that. Like
it's pretty crazy when that happens.
Yeah.
Like I definitely understand what you mean, because it's pretty crazy when you're like, fuck, I can't believe I'm actually just walking into a place that's just BMX all day.
Yeah.
Like because I always came out of school being like, what am I going to be doing? Like pretty much just drove my results for year 11 and 12 into the ground, because I was just so obsessed with bikes.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I'm good at drawing. Maybe I'll try and do like some sort of like graphic design or whatever. So I did like web design.
Okay.
But then very luckily, like RIS was like, I'm speaking of 2020, like, which is so crazy to me that you had a shop with the dudes that were running 2020.
Well, they were making it in the room above the store, like the mag was getting made.
So crazy, man. Like, I'll get into the 2020 thing in a second, just on a side note. But I was like, oh, this dude Riss is opening a shop, and then I met Riss, and then I'm like, oh, well, who's doing your website? And I was going to school for websites and stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm doing the website at the shop. But it becomes a thing where, well, maybe you can tell me this. It's a really cool ride, and then all of a sudden it starts feeling like work.
Yeah, I feel like I never had the, you wake up on a Monday morning like, oh, I've got it.
That's right. I've never had
like
that
with
either,
school and like other jobs. Like when I worked in my first job out of high school, I worked in this terrible factory, and like, you have that, oh God, Monday morning. Like I never had that once.
Yeah.
But I think when it got sort of real, is like, when it comes to like business stresses of like,
that's right, yeah.
Oh, like we've got to pay for all this month, and like it's been slow or whatever, stuff like that can, it's like, oh, okay, like it can get a bit. But like the thing is, like Mike was such a fucking pro with all the like sort of money side and like the back end. Like he rarely stressed. Like I'd be getting stressed, and he was like, we'll figure it out, that's cool. Like, and then he always was so calm and, cool. and really just fucking just a legend with all that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because there was definitely, I mean, we had a couple of moments where, like, I think early days we were selling Zoo York, because we were trying to be like a bit more of a bit more sort of streetwear and like just be a cool shop.
Yeah, I remember
King
coming
Street.
in early, and I was like, whoa, they got some cool shit
Like,
in here. Like,
like lots of
not
shoes.
typically BMX, or like a lot of apparel and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like there was, Ruka, like RVCA and Zoo York were under the same distro, and that, when you get into that world, it's like the fashion industry side of things, which is like a gnarly, it's all indent orders 10 months in advance sort of thing, like, and you're going to like viewing. So like the guy Jody, is like your house fashion agency was what it's called, and we'd go there once every few months, and he'd show us the new Zoo York range, the new Ruka range, and it's all like rad shit, and we'd be like making notes, like ordering, and then the stuff just keeps coming. Like you forget, and it's like I'm not sure how often the drops were, but like it got to a point where like we had so much like kick-ass like jeans and like rad clothing and stuff, but we just weren't selling it, and we weren't really that store. We hadn't morphed into being that, and we had a bit of a problem with like how we're going to pay for all we had to have a bit of a meeting then, like fuck, like stop ordering, like say no when the guy tells you to come in for a viewing, like we could so I think a similar thing happened to Nike when 6.0 dropped, and it was like they'd rework colors every 5 minutes. It was like new this cut, like it was
dude, we had Nikes for so many years after.
Like we end up having a garage sale to get rid of them all, because I think whoever was the rep at the time, I was like, hey, like we're really struggling to sell these. We're not a shoe shop, like, but orders keep coming. Like, have you got any tips, or like have you got any sort of like, come in and show us how to maybe like set up the shoe corner better, like your Nike's the biggest shoe company, one of the biggest shoe companies. Like, you got any merchandising tips for us? And the guy basically told me to fuck off.
Really?
Like, he basically was like, that's not my job. So we were like, all right, no more orders. We couldn't, they wouldn't let us cancel any of the ones that we'd already done. It was like, they're coming to you no matter. So we were just like selling them for dirt cheap. We had a big garage sale. We had a like big rack in the backyard, just like, come and get your Nikes for like $50. Like, wow. Just because it was just like, get rid of it. Like, it was just too heavy. Like, it was. Yeah. So that was like our second sort of like, sort of frightening. It's outside of BMX, but inside of BMX, it was chill, like we kind of knew what we were doing, and Mike had industry experience being a distributor himself. Yeah. So it was a bit easy. But when you go into like, fashion world of like external, it's a bigger, crazy, scary industry out there for that stuff. Yeah. So, yeah,
crazy, man. Like that, even it's like that for particular brands that we like. Say, it's sick to be able to stock Vans because it's they're doing so much cool events and stuff like that within the BMX world, but you're so in BMX that you forget that like Vans are stocked at literally every shop. Like,
totally,
and they don't. There's no. It's not like they're not allowed to stock the BMX shoes. So you're like, oh my god, like, why do we get all these shoes? Yeah, it's kind of come to a good period now where you can be like, no, I'm only going to stock like the fast and loose shoes that come out. Yeah. And then that way,
and
like,
choose
pick and choose or whatever. But it's just a funny time like that. I feel like that time in 2007 to like 2010, it must have boomed or something. I don't know what it was, but it just felt like there was all this like industry. There was newness, and there was like all these new brands.
Totally, yeah.
People were like,
that was a great
new
time.
Parts all the time and shit. Like, it's pretty crazy.
It was an exciting time. Like, it was just.
And like what I was saying before, or like I wanted to say, 2020 had a big influence on the growth of BMX at that time too, because obviously social media was well away, like so far away in the distance, and they were the ones that were like the heartbeat to the BMX scene in Australia.
Totally, that was where everyone got their information. I
keep thinking about the Nike bike that we had the competition with. Like, it's pretty funny for those that don't know. Like, we did so Nike came into BMX with Nike 6.0, and we got to do this shoe competition where we got to make a custom bike, and it just had to be like Nike 6.0 inspired or something like that, right? Like,
it was just Nike themed. It was
Nike themed bike.
It was Back Bone, us, and was it Ride On in
Brisbane,
Brisbane, pre-Lux. And then 2020 shot the bikes. That's like for the studio, shoot them because the bikes will get sent to us. I remember pulling the Back Bone one out of the box, being like, "Holy fuck! They got a custom FBM with like a Nike swoosh chain, a seat stay bridge. And all the amazing painting. Was that?
It was Leah.
Amazing. It was. That was like, I think that bike should have won.
Like, your bike, the Helen Wheels bike, looked the most impressive in terms of like photography and stuff.
Well,
like that,
we kind of were like, well, if we just sort of stroke their ego a little bit and just copy the shoebox, because that time Nike shoebox was yellow and orange and white, and we just made like a fade with and we got custom stickers made, and like, it was sick. And like, and the kid that won that bike, because it was like a raffle, you buy shoes and you go into the draw, his name's Riley. I think he's up in Yamba. He was just a little kid, and he kept in contact through the years. Like, I don't think he was ever like a core BMXer, but like, still had the bike, would send us photos like, oh, I got the bike. I think Yamba at the time, there's not much to ride back then. And he was just stoked, and he was like kind of like almost like a friend for life. Like, I mean, I haven't obviously been a long time since I had heard from him. He's well and truly an adult by now, I'm sure. But like, it's very cool. Like, and we won a TV. I think that was the prize. It was like a big flat screen plasma, and that was we had it hanging on the shop wall. And funnily enough, when we closed the store, I took it home and I used it at home for up until probably only a year ago.
No way, that's sick. Dude, the bike. So, because we gave away the bike too, and the kid that won the bike in Canberra, his mum wouldn't let him ride it. And
really?
Yeah, like she was just adamant that this was going to be this collector's item bike.
Oh my god!
And I was like, we were like, no, he should that's a really good bike. He should just ride it.
Yeah.
Because he only had like a whatever mid-range complete bike or something, and then he won this bike that literally there's only one of because it's a
custom FBM,
and then he wasn't allowed to ride it. And then years later they tried to sell it back to us, and we're like, no, we're cool.
yeah.
We're happy with building it and then giving it away. But it was just so funny to be like, you want a bike and you're not even allowed to ride it. Like,
yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I guess that's a pretty crazy like sort of competition / industry thing to have happened. You don't really like.
Yeah, that's right.
Happen these days.
I just feel like that era, like that was going on. Like there just seemed like there was so many big things that were happening. Even things like the Red Bull at that time, I feel like Red Bull Dirt Pipe was happening.
Yeah.
And, like there was just big time things going on.
Yeah, I feel like it's. I mean, obviously there's still rad stuff going on, but it's just a different.
That's
sort
right.
of a different sort of vibe and level. Like
totally. And I think like it's sort of hard to lose sight, I guess, because COVID's been around for the last 2.5 years. So now you're like, do things happen? And Riss and I were just saying like we've got to start getting back to going out to like different places and doing whatever jams or things like that. But like I guess a cool what I want to talk to you about with the whole bike shop stuff is just your thoughts on what changed and how you feel like how you feel it changed and what led you to be like, why do I need to close? Obviously there's the the reasons that are obvious to anyone. Like there's been times we run on the scent of an oily rag, what I mean? Like
that's the whole industry.
Not a lot of people know this, but like when COVID hit in 2020, Riss and I looked at each other, we're like, we're fucked, like, as I'm sure everyone did. Like,
yeah, fully.
And Riss was like, man, I can go back plumbing if you can just run the shop, and like maybe we can facilitate like staying afloat. And he like rang his old plumbing boss up and said he rang his old plumbing boss up and was like, do you reckon you could get a job for me and I can commit to like 6 months?
Wow, okay.
And I was like, yeah, it's a good idea, because like the Prime Minister, we literally ran a legitimate competition on the Sunday, and then that night the Prime Minister was like, this is a global emergency, we've got to shut all this shit down, because people were already talking about it. And we'd that was the first year where we'd 2020 is the year of the rat, we're going to do all these competitions like BMX
year,
it's BMX year.
Oh, totally.
And anyway, like Riss went back plumbing and committed to 6 months, and I was thinking this is going to be like dire straits, because no one's going to be around doing anything, they're locking everything down, and then all of a sudden fucking blew up for for bike industry in general, So I guess what I'm saying is that the industry as a whole, BMX, has always been something where it's not like we're selling diamonds or iPads or whatever, so what do you think has changed since that 2007 time?
Well, I mean, I can't really speak about the COVID times because we closed literally a month before.
Yeah.
Obviously bike industry stuff went crazy in the bike industry outside of BMX. So because I had no intention of working in the bike industry straight away. I was like, I don't want to work in a bike shop. I was like, because my memories of bike shops was very, I just pictured, when Steve Morrissey closed Ride On and he went to become like a 99 Bikes, like workshop manager or something. I'm looking at 99 Bikes as a business model. I'm like, they're all wearing polo shirts. They're probably listening to terrible music all day. Like, I do not want to be part of this. That's a commission-based, competitive fucking... I was like, that's gross. So I got my... while we were closing the store down, it was kind of happening in the background, and no one really knew about it yet, but we were trying to figure it all out. I went and did my RSA online because I was like, well, I live in the inner west. Newtown's on my doorstep. There's all these breweries. I know enough people. I was on my way to do a trial / beer kind of nerd tour course at Young Henry's. And I rang Matt, who was like an old BMX buddy who was the events manager there. And I was like, hey, what time do we come in? He's like, hey, the Prime Minister just announced, like, we all got to close bars, done. Like, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, because he was going to put me on the casual list. I was getting a few shifts, just pouring beers and hanging out and, having, just different pace altogether. So, but then obviously this other, like the Omafeets gig, I got a message off one of the guys who worked there, and I knew a couple of people who worked there, and they go, do you want to, we need a mechanic. And then I was like, yeah, okay. At first I was like, nah, I don't want to work in a bike shop. Like, nah, then they go, come have a look at the store. And I was like, oh, okay. Went in there, they're playing good music. Everyone's wearing what they want to wear. Staff have got, they're just lovely people. So I was like, okay, maybe. And then I took a few days. Like, yeah, actually, yeah, cool. I'd love to work a few shifts, And then they're like, oh, no, man, like, global pandemic, like, it's panic stations.
Yeah.
Maybe we might have to even lay people off. So at the moment, and then like 2 days later, actually, he's like, hey, bike shop's booming. You want to come work? Come tomorrow?
Yeah.
But harking back to like BMX wise, I mean, like we mentioned, like the 2007 to 2010, 11 was definitely our strongest sort of time in the store in terms of like just, stock, having lots of stock, turning the stock over, being able to sort of do events and it being a pretty good vibe. Like,
yeah.
And where we were in Newtown, like at that time, there was a few sort of like, I guess, BMX, skate, punk, art sort of share houses, with, people similar age to me and Rob who were all about it. They're, like Dave C and John Young.
Yeah, of course,
they all lived locally, and there was a bunch of like cool DIY. Like Dave and a couple other people built this rad kind of pallet bowl thing in where the Carriage Works Farmers Markets is now, which is like insane to think about there being ghetto ramps in this like fancy pants sort of precinct now. So there's a lot going on in that area. 5 Dot got rebuilt in 07, start of 07.
Okay, wow.
So that was good timing,
yeah.
which was freaking excellent because we've been riding there since we were little kids. It was just the old stuff, the old bowl and everything. So that time was, and then I get just sort of like, I don't know, Sydney's so big. And you've got little pockets of scenes. So like you got Northern Beaches kids, you've got sort of like Western suburbs, Southwestern sort of Campbelltown, Camden sort of scene. And like, I mean, Newtown at least was sort of central and we were getting people from other areas, but like it did start to sort of slow down and like, I don't know in terms of if it was BMX in general, but like our area, like gentrification, the area was getting a lot more expensive. Our rent was going up. The sort of like kind of grimy BMX houses were no longer, people were sort of dissipating from the area because it was getting a bit expensive, and the houses that were affordable were fucking shit. Like they were falling down. Like, like, I mean, the ceiling at Hell on Wheels fell in a couple of times. I lived there for the last 4 years of the Newtown store, and the ceiling in our bedroom fell in. Like,
holy shit,
like,
yeah, right.
Yeah. So like, it's, and dodgy landlords, all that sort of stuff. So,
yeah.
But I mean, the last few years, I feel like, I don't know, like BMX was still like amongst the core, people were still very supportive. Like people really like, the people that like, I can't thank the people that, patronize the store, enough. Like people that came in and ordered stuff from us and bought things off us. Like, it was, I love them all. And it was really amazing to feel that support, but it was sort of less and less. That crowd grew smaller, but then the general sort of population of people that just want to come in and buy BMX for their kids felt like it was dying off a bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe just its popularity amongst, from a mainstream perspective, got less. I don't know. I mean, did you experience stuff like that in Canberra?
I think I was actually just saying this to Riss the other day, not about like that you were coming or anything, but I was just saying about how in Canberra it is really hard to find that BMX share house that I grew up. When I moved here, I was 18, moved into a BMX share house pretty, when I was 20 or whatever, and now I don't know if there is as much opportunity to just work the odd job. or work a job without getting into a career to like then like start to climb through like whatever the whether it's in the government or like in a trade, you know, and people work so hard, you know, like carpenters and things like that, and rent gets so, you know, rent and like let's just say you get to buy a house or something, like I don't know what the median house price is in Canberra. It's ridiculous, like $800,000 or something.
Is that all? Ever lived in Sydney? Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm never going to own a house in Sydney. Ever. Like,
it's like crazy, you know, like, so you're thinking, well, how can people just afford to like live like that kind of dirtbag BMX lifestyle, which then means that they're less likely to be riding more often.
Yeah, and I think if they're around...
They're just not around like as much. But, what was I going to say? I guess like we always had good stock in the shop, and we always were like, man, we're pretty stoked to like, you know, there was times like, I guess the way that we would buy back in the day, even with bikes, is okay. So there's the 2011 fit bikes are coming in. Riss would order like, okay, I reckon we'll get 5 of this bike, 3 of this bike, only 1 of this, like whatever, and then that would do us for like however many months until the next drop came. Yeah. And you know, like if times got tight, it'd be like 20% off bikes. Like we need to get some bikes moved so we
bills
can
paid quickly. Just,
totally. You know, like if it's slow or whatever, but for the general part, there'd be bikes that you don't order at all because you're like, oh, I'm not into that, and maybe you're totally off. But like your crystal ball kind of is like based on like the type of stuff that you like. Yeah. Oh, totally. And what I think happened is, you know, online stores kind of, there were, let's just say Chain Reaction or even Pushies or someone like that. Yeah. They started with that model of like, no, everything's available.
Dance comp.
Fuck. Yeah. And then you're like...
Goliaths. Yeah.
And then you're just thinking, man, why are we not selling like... We always have like... There was times when we would keep like deep stock of like a particular part. And you'd be like, man, we're just not selling stuff. And then you realize that like, oh, there are people that want like 165 left-hand drive Thunderbolt cranks. Yeah. But you just stocked 175s because for the longest time... Like I'm from the era where I used to go... I'd catch like 2 trains, and it would take me a long time to get to Strictly back in the day when I lived in country Victoria, and it'd be like 2 hours to get to Strictly, and then I'd go in thinking like I'm getting Odyssey Gym C pedals like in black. That's my, and they've only got them in lime green or purple, and I definitely had lime green and purple because that was the only colours I had. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. You were buying them regardless.
Yeah, that's right.
But now I guess with the ease of internet, it's like, well, I can see it's available right now elsewhere. So instead of being like, I'm going to go to the bike shop and buy some pedals, it's like, I want to buy this exact color in this exact, you know, configuration, whatever. Yeah. And if my local bike shop doesn't have it, I'll get it somewhere else.
That's right.
That's sort of, I guess, the shopping mentality shifted.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a mentality thing. Like, I don't necessarily know if BMX got more or less popular. I think that maybe other things potentially came, you know, like scooters got massive, you know, like, and there was certainly like the heyday of, I mean, we're a similar age, so we probably both sweated. Like, I grew up liking Dave Mirra a lot. Like, I would be like, fuck, he's so good, you know, Dave Mirra, like at X Games in 2000 or some shit like that, you know. Whereas now it's like, it's not so, that legendary status of riding isn't quite what it used to be just then, because you would only get like that like TV hoopla of BMX.
Oh yeah, the built it up. The pedestal is gone.
That's right,
because you're able to follow this, you know, BMX superhero on Instagram, and they're showing you what you had for breakfast. What they had for breakfast, and they went to the gym when they bought, you know, this new fucking t-shirt, or, you know, like, it really waters down the special. Yeah, you know, and there's also no magazines, so like, you know, you've got all these posters on the wall, which, you know, I was the same. I had stuff all over my bedroom wall, and you're looking at this stuff. You had it in your school books. Like, it really builds up this, like, in your head of like, this is big time, amazing, like superhero stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's watered down
for sure
a lot now.
Man, that's actually interesting that you talk about the pedestal, because I think that I actually think that's really important. It sounds like something that would be a bad thing to put people on pedestals, but I actually feel like,
as long as they're not egomaniacs.
That's right. But like, I think that having things to aim for and to strive for in BMX, it might not work out that way, right? Like when I was 12, I'd be like, I want to go to the X Games because I just love Dave Miro. I think he's so sick.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't turn out that type of rider. I'm not like a competition type rider or anything like that. But
it got you hooked.
It got me so hooked because you would just see that thing. Whereas I do think that social media is interesting in the way that, one, like you said, you see your heroes every day and what they do, and you also follow them, and because you like what they do, it's almost like breaks that barrier where you're like, I kind of know that person, like I follow them and I like their thing and I commented on their picture, so now I'm like, me and him are kind of like on the same level. So I think it takes that, like you said, it takes that shine and that like drive to be like, oh, I want to be that person. And if anything, I think it actually creates a bit of anxiety for a lot of people, because they're like, oh, I'm never going to be as good as Logan Martin. He just posted that he just did a 1080. Oh, chilled session, 1080.
Yeah,
or
well,
the
access of information of like seeing what's done every day, and also, and then on the other flip side of that is you kind of then go to expect that from someone. Like
that's right. Yeah.
You see, like that time Logan Martin came to Act Jam. Like obviously he destroyed it and was like, but like people are kind of expecting him to do all these crazy stuff every time he drops in. You know what I mean? Because that's what they see, and that's so. I mean, he put on a show. Don't get me wrong, and it was ridiculous. Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? Like you can't, you're sort of expected to do this stuff, and it sort of it waters down the special of like, I've seen this person do X amount of tricks on his Instagram, and like I saw him at the bowl today, and he was just doing manuals, and he's not, like he's
like, not as good as he cracked up to be type thing.
Yeah, so
for sure,
social media is very strange like that.
It is strange like that. So I do think that like, my opinion on, and we obviously can keep talking about it because I've cut you off a little bit, but you probably built a scene to some respect by opening Hell on Wheels. You know what I mean? Like, I would say that there was obviously riders that were core, but you probably gave this spot that is like a hub for people to be like, oh man, like there's this place that I can go to. Other people are sort of like running their t-shirt, or like they might be there or whatever. And I think that like really bolsters a scene. And then I think that as those riders potentially get older, sometimes it can be hard to be like, because 10 years goes by and then all of a sudden it's like you're not maybe down the skate park as much as what like you were 10 years ago, and all those riders have moved away, or they're like doing different stuff, or they're not riding anymore, and it's like it can be such an interesting thing to be like, man, how do you just continue to keep that stoke alive? And I think you did do that, or at least I thought that it was really cool that you did it when you moved to Campbelltown. So. Well,
yeah, I mean that was a bit of a necessity move, because like the last few years in Newtown, it was like the rent was expensive, and like I mentioned, like all the sort of like grimy BMX skate houses have sort of gone away, and they really didn't feel like there was any youth. There was a couple of young, school, early high school age kids that were coming through that were riding, but they didn't have that. They weren't addicted and like the bitten by the bug like you and I were at that age. I guess because they're exposed to so many things, social media and whatever, like they can dabble in 8 different things, but not actually get really addicted to one and obsessed with one thing. It was like they kind of ride BMX, they also kind of skate, they also kind of play drums, they also kind of break dance, or they also kind of do graffiti. Like they're kind of half-assed in 6 things instead of like being obsessed with, and I also think that, magazines, like all that stuff, it all was this sort of imperfect storm of like watering it all down. But I mean, like, there were still people that came in and everything like that. And, you know, like, I mean, we had a couple of, you know, my one success story I like to, you know, success story I like to brag about is Hunter Cowan Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
He bought his first bike off us. He was 9.
Yeah,
when we first opened. And he then went on, his older brother, Tennessee, he did work experience with us. Then Hunter did work experience with us a couple of years later. And then he became, 10 years later, he's 19 years old and he's this fucking beast.
Yeah,
and like he came in the whole way through. He lived local, and like we'd help him with his bike, and like he had a couple of friends that would come, but like all of his friends sort of they just all dissipated as well. They kind of just got out of riding, and he started riding with the older group, and you know, and became this fucking monster on a bike.
Yeah.
Which was like, I feel like he was sort of the last. After him, no young. I feel like in our area at least, no young kids kind of came through, and I don't know if that was just sort of a sign of the times in terms of the area itself being not a lot of young families, more of a young professionals sort of zone in Sydney. But now that area is fully, all those young professionals when they have now become young parents.
Yeah.
And now there is a lot more family based stuff in that area. You know, like the Sydney Park skate park got built just down the road.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of story of my life in terms of timing. Like I moved the store to Campbelltown because Newtown was sort of done. Mike said we had a bit of a sit down, like let's close the store. And I was like, what if we move somewhere cheaper where we know there's bike riders? You know, because Newtown, there wasn't like, everyone was gone. You know, like people were, but you know, like Five Dock and Dulwich Hill were the closest parks, pretty close, but not that close.
Not
like,
close enough.
Not pedaling distance for everybody, especially 15-year-olds. You know, like, there's trains and stuff, but you know, it's not ideal. So I was like, well, let's try. I was like, well, Campbelltown is this sort of bizarre pocket, like. It's like a stronghold. Every time you go there, like to ride that park, there's always riders there, and they're all really fucking good and always have been.
Yeah.
It's just bred amazing talent, you know. So I just started Googling and I found this space. It was a block from the park, next to the train station, pretty much. And then like I remember I came to Canberra and you guys had just moved here, and I've been chatting to Riss, and actually was really inspired by your move to here with Belco being built and being right there.
Yeah.
I remember Riz telling me a story of how like normally previously a parent might have come into the store and been like, why is this bike $1,200? But now that you're in this new location right next to the skate park, you can see people doing 8-foot airs.
Yeah.
And now you can sort of justify this bike needs to be worth $1,200 because they're going crazy high and they're landing sideways and it has to be good quality. Like, whereas, so it was like and then Riz explained it to me and I was like, fuck, that makes so much sense. And that's a great, and so I kind of said to Michael, let's move to Campbelltown. Let's just try it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, so that was Christmas Eve 2017. We closed Newtown and started pulling stuff off the walls. By sort of mid-January 2018, we had opened Campbelltown.
Okay.
And we had this sort of big building. I had, plans of building a mini ramp, like same size as, like basically replicate the old Bondi Beach Mini before the park was built. Similar to Will Kerr's half-pipe. Yeah. We had the space for it, and that was sort of the plan. And then 2018 was a great year. Like it was, this was a good idea. Like there was heaps of kids riding, and like, at that point Dermo had kind of come out of retirement. Yeah. And like it was like kind of popping off, and Chowgi obviously was like the dude and still is the dude. He's the best rider ever. But it was just excellent. And you had, guys like Dev, and it was a scene, it was fucking great. And then I don't know, like that kind of only lasted a year. Yeah. And then 2019 rolled over, and I feel like all the kids, there was a bunch of kids that were amazing on bikes. They're all sort of 15, 16. They raced and rode skate parks and street and dirt and stuff like that, which was great because they wanted race stuff and they wanted like park, like more core brands. They all sort of stopped riding and they got to year 16. Girlfriends, licenses, jobs at the fast food chain, whatever. I feel like, they were all gone. And then like, it was just like a light switch. Like that year just sort of never picked up. Like after, that February lull, like you've had a great Christmas, you've sold everything, you've reordered stuff, parts started, you start to restock after Christmas, your bills for January stuff are due in February. And then the customers never came back. Yeah. And that was sort of, and then the rest of the year was just like that. It was just playing catch up, just, from paying off the Christmas bills, and it just sort of just never caught back up.
Yeah.
And I feel like by then, the online purchasing sort of culture had grown to such a norm. Like years ago, you maybe wouldn't have bought a frame online because I got to put my credit card details into a computer. Like, what if the frame doesn't turn up? But then confidence. But it's proven that online purchasing works and it's convenient. So I feel like in Newtown we were sort of central to a lot of areas, but Campbelltown, if you're from the Northern Beaches, all of a sudden Campbelltown's 2 hours away. You know what I mean? Whereas it's only 45 minutes to Newtown. You're like, so I really noticed a lot of people, even friends and even team riders, like just less people were coming.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I really felt a bit isolated. Like we had obviously the scene, the local crew were there, and that was good. But people I used to see all the time, I didn't see anymore, and it was a bit like I'm just sort of commuting out. I still lived in Newtown at the time. It's 50 kilometers each direction.
Yeah, sure.
and it's Sydney
and
traffic.
Sydney, yeah.
So it's an hour to 2 hours each way if you get unlucky. And some 6 days a week I was getting burnt out, and I was like, keep doing it. It'll turn around. We'll figure it out. And then like it's sort of just, I don't know if it's just that it just coincided with we had an online store, but it was not like we were a little bit late to the online store party. I think we built a new site, like when the whole online like stock level like when you have all the suppliers stock on your website. When that first sort of started, we were like really late to figuring out how to do that, and and then when we started doing it, I was like, cool, like we're gonna have this cool new website, and like it's all integrated, because our retail software and the website are integrated, so we don't have to like at the end of the day minus stock off the website that we sold in the shop. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have an online store. It's gonna be fun. And then but it was so much work as well. Like, I mean, I'm not very good at computer stuff, and I remember trying to load up. Like, I'll start with S&M and fit. I'll load up every frame, fork, handlebar, stem first. Like photos, descriptions, like weights, all that stuff, shipping. Like, it took me weeks just to do S&M and fit, frame, fork, handlebar, stems. And I was like, what about every other supplier, every other brand? I'm like you need a full-time web person for that. And then I'm running the store by myself. Like, Mike had moved to Jindabyne. He's still doing the back end, doing all the really difficult stuff I didn't know how to do and didn't want to do. But and I'm just there going how are we going to load all these products up? It's and then next minute, there are other stores that are just really online focused and have really put the time, energy and money into having that powerful online store. Yeah. And sort of just left twiddling my thumbs, being like, well, okay, anyone remember me over here? I'm still here. But I mean, that's not to my supporters and the people that still.
Oh, for sure.
I'm really fortunate to
That's right.
But the thing is, you got to keep growing. You can't just sit there and rely on the same group to keep buying new stuff, because products are good these days. They don't break.
Yeah, that's totally right.
You're not replacing your frame every 6 months like you might have done in previous years.
Yeah, it's it is a different time. You're exactly right. And it can be hard to get to grips with that. There's certainly something Riss and I talk about. Do we need to even have a retail store anymore? And it's a scary concept to even think about, because there's just something in your heart that wants you to just be the place that the kid can walk in and have their life changed by BMX.
Totally.
I don't know if that experience happens for as many people anymore, but yeah, it's a weird one. I do think that the world is sort of swinging back around a little bit because of right now. I feel like online, not even in the BMX industry, but just in real world, in every industry, it's almost like it's oversaturated. You have so much information, so much availability of stuff, and I think that people do enjoy that like like the real person interaction. Like you probably get it at your store now, like at your regular bike shop. I'm sure that you get people that like coming in to be like, I just need this advice that I don't know. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm an expert because I'm reading all this stuff, but now I'm just getting more confused.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's just it's a tough one because you, at the end of the day, you're a BMXer and you love BMX so much, but at the same time you're like, man, I don't know. Just speaking from our own experiences, it's like you love it so much, you want to do the best job that you can, but you're like, I can't do this job if there's no one coming to buy stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like I mean, yeah. How long can you go without like that's kind of the reason. Like I really should have closed the store maybe in 2017.
Yeah.
But I was like, I love it, and I just want there to be a place. And I had these like again like I use this as sort of my example or inspiration of skate park. People come in, they want to hang out, they want to buy stuff, they get a puncture, they get a spoke replaced or whatever. Like we're here for them when they need it, but I feel like I don't know what it's like, how the younger people or the younger generations think, but like, do they even want that? That's could you probably, I mean, it's sad to say, you probably could exist as just an online store and maybe have like I'll start offering pickup and stuff that people then still want to come in and get you to put the chain on for free or whatever. So you may as well have a store, but I just don't know if the younger generation, because they maybe didn't grow up having lots of stores and seeing the examples of and seeing the world through the eyes we saw them through. Like, are the kids expect it, or they just don't? Are they just like, I just know I buy things off the internet and that stuff turns up at my house.
Yeah.
I watch YouTube how to fit it to my bike.
For sure. Yeah.
Like I feel like in BMX that is a problem because BMX bikes are quite simple compared to the rest of the bike world, and BMXers are like a bit more willing to try stuff themselves hands on or watch. And there are people like Brant Moore, for example, has these amazing informative videos of how to dial your brakes in or how to do this and how to do that. So whereas the rest of the bike industry stuff is a bit, it's your sort of layman bike industry customer, like bike mechanics is like a black art. They're like, I'm not going near adjusting my gears. Like that's a whole like, what the hell? Like same as like car, like back in the day when cars were simpler before computers, it was just like, here's your spark plugs, here's your leads, here's your distributor. You can kind of figure it out, muck around with some spanners and kind of get your car to work. But now it's like people that might have dabbled in at-home mechanics, they've got a 2022 Volkswagen. They're taking it to the dealership to get serviced. They're not even attempting to plug that shit in at home because and I feel like greater bike industry, non-BMX is sort of going that road.
Yeah.
Where stuff is getting so tech.
Yeah.
But BMX is still sort of a bit more, I guess, analog in terms of like it's two wheels, chain, cranks, and handlebars. And integrated headsets are easy. You hit your bottom bracket in with a hammer if you're, it's to be a at-home kid. I feel like bikes are easier to work on now than when we were kids. We had press-in headsets, American bottom brackets, and stuff like that, and stuff just wasn't as dialed, and to work on your bike, our bikes probably ran like shit, but we'd attempt it, but nowadays it's so easy.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I feel like the future of but bike shops have to stay, I don't know, between you and I, a world without a BMX store would just be the worst. Even now, I haven't been in the store since 2 act jams ago, but I'm still stoked to look at all the things on the wall, I haven't been around new products and I haven't been paying attention to new products and stuff like that since closing the store as much as I would have done. But I'm still, but that's just how I grew up, we used to go to Terry at BMX Mafia back when he was called Psychology. He used to deal with us being annoying kids. we spend all day, literally all day, opening to closing, just looking in the glass cabinet, going, "Can I get that sprocket out?" And like you just look at it for an hour, put it back in, and then like stuff like that. And it was just see it, touch it, breathe it, and
Yeah, I think maybe, who knows, maybe young kids will get inspired to be like, oh, far out, I can actually go and see and interact with the real world by going to their local BMX shop, whichever one it is. And I think it is good at, as much as they're not coming to the BMX shops as much to do repairs, I think it is good that BMX is that analog, just like you and I, growing up, I did a lot of probably pretty dodgy bike mechanics until I got, reasonably good at it or whatever. But it's cool to learn in that way, because far out, I'd hate to get into road cycling or something like that if I was a kid, because you'd just be like, I'm off this. Imagine having to fix, especially with like the way that if you got a high-end bike nowadays, like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's another universe.
It's crazy how the just on a complete side note, it's interesting, the road cycling world, there'll often be like road cycling dads that come in and they're like $800 for a bike, but then they're like, in the same breath, they'll be like, oh, I've got a $15,000 road bike.
I just dropped 15 grand on it. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, do you know what your son's going to do on this $800 bike? Like, he is going to go bananas on this thing. And like,
roll off a curb on your, modern road bike, and you disintegrate. Yeah.
So what's next, man? What you got any plans for the future, anything like that? Just keep pumping out the Hell on Wheels.
I mean, to be fair, like Hell on Wheels wise, I had thought maybe by now, being that's April, it's been 3 years since closing, I had thought by now would have maybe had something a bit more solid. But I mean, I really enjoy the pace at the moment. Like, it's, like my share of the rent is cheap on this sort of workshop space I share with Matt. And like, I can sort of pick and choose how much work I do or don't do. And it's still very satisfying to do that. And the genuine customer interactions I'm having with people that are stoked on the work I've done and stuff like that is still very nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to go back to having a storefront. I don't know. I think now that I've been away from like the stress side of, like paying for rent and retail, especially in Sydney, retail rent is nonsense. Like, it's crazy. And then, obviously sitting on stock, like, at the moment all I stock is maybe 10 lengths of spoke, nipples, bottom brackets, headsets, couple of chains, tubes. That's my kind of what I keep all the time. Rim tape. But like, I still have access. Like, the suppliers have been very cool because some suppliers say you have to have a storefront to be able to have an account. But the BMX ones have been pretty cool in letting me, like, if I needed something, I can ring them up and order something, and they treat me like I still have a store. I mean, I'll pay up front as opposed to having an account. But like, which has been really nice. But cool. But I don't know. Like, I haven't honestly. I mean, I'd like to do more with like apparel. Because I really enjoy doing t-shirts, and I want to do like stickers and hats and stuff. Because Hell on Wheels is a fun brand, fun sort of name to. You can do a lot. It's got a lot of potential to. Like, I always have these. Like, even the whole way through the shop, I feel like we didn't do that many t-shirt designs, mainly because I suck at drawing. I suck at computers. Like, I'm like, I have this sick idea. And then like, but I'll and I'm also very bad at asking friends for favors. Like, to go and ask Matt, like, hey, can you design this logo for me? And like, I'm like, he's busy. I don't want to, like harass him with these things, like, So, I have reached out in a few, like Evan Daines has done a couple of t-shirts for us over the years and stuff like that. And, so I'd love to do more with that, like, and that's just something that's fun that I'm not necessarily interested in that becoming a income stream for me, which is a nice bonus. But like, we have the new website up, which Matt, made, and I'm really stoked on it. He did a really good job, and it looks cool. Great. Got a little online sort of story thing, and they just got t-shirts on there, which is, very small numbers at the moment. But I'd like to keep doing more with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And events, maybe. I mean, like, I used to love putting on the jam at 5 Dock every year and stuff like that. So COVID sort of definitely put like events sort of in the bin for a while. Like,
Yeah.
because Sydney Park's been built, and no one's. Well, there's a new young group of riders, and they go under the name of Press BMX. They've got an Instagram account.
Yeah.
Young street shredders, fucking proactive. They do little jams. They did a little bike giveaway. Like, they're really. I'm stoked. These guys are fucking killing it. It's really cool. But like outside of there, they've done a couple of little jams at Sydney Park. Like, there hasn't been a proper. That bowl hasn't been christened yet. It hasn't had a proper heavy hitting jam with shredders. So I would like to do a jam there. I have sort of talked about it a bunch, but I haven't actually done anything about it. But I really should do that this year. A couple other just fun events. Like, I always thought, again, I don't really have the means or resources anymore for stuff, and the world has changed. But I would have loved to have done a dirt event in Sydney's sort of inner city somewhere. That's still a dream, but I don't know how I'm going to go about that. But like to do like a dirt comp somewhere in the city would be fucking wild.
A dirt comp would be sick. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
In Canberra to do something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's... You and I are the same, and Riss too, obviously. Like, I speak for both him and I. Like, we kind of we do use the shop to facilitate the scene, you know what I mean? And even though you don't have like your retail shop anymore, your gears are still turning in your head, you're still like, you just want to do cool shit.
Yeah.
To make BMX sick. It's as simple as that. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like we want to do the same thing, like, especially now that COVID's kind of like seems to be back to normal, so it's like, man, let's put jams on here. So I think I hear you, man, like, and I feel like if you ever wanted to collaborate, like, it'd be sick to do that.
Yeah. And
but if not, I'll definitely attend your jam at that Sydney Park.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Well, yeah, I think they were like, I don't think it's the Vans Bowl comp things that are going to be happening. I know they might happen again eventually, but like that bowl was potentially going to be the new Sydney stop, I think.
Yeah.
Colin McKay had messaged me a couple of times like, do you reckon it's good enough for it? I was like, man, it's a great bowl.
Oh yeah, fucking looks exactly like the Huntington Beach.
Exactly, yeah.
But probably bigger.
But so Sydney has got a few more parks since I closed the store. So, which would be, actually Brody does a really good job, Brody Butterlegs.
Yeah.
Like, he kicks ass. Like, he is so, like, loves it as much as you or I, like,
for
and
sure.
He's always doing cool little, like, events and stuff like that, and I always try to get to them if I can, and, like, it's just a good vibe, like, it's just, getting people together to ride bikes and get stoked,
Yeah,
so,
that's it, man.
I mean, more of that, definitely
needs
to happen.
I think I think no matter who is doing them, like, I think showing support to people that are doing it just grows the scene, and then keeps the bike shops that are around, or whatever, keeps them ticking along. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's fun to think about anyway. Like, I love regardless of Hell on Wheels retail shop closing down. It's not like Hell on Wheels has gone anywhere, so it's pretty cool in that.
No,
respect.
I mean,
yeah,
that's trying to keep something going, but like, I'm still don't really know, haven't got the plans or anything, but like, I mean, it is nice that people ask after it, and they and that's I feel the love, which is great.
That's good, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like Sydney. I mean, I would really, if someone was going to try open a BMX shop in Sydney tomorrow, I would be very worried for them. Like, I mean, I'd be stoked to see it, but at the same time, it's like, Sydney's a tough place. It's just so big and so spread apart. I mean, like, but huge credit to Terry. Like, I mean, like, BMX Mafia, Psychology, when we were growing up, like, he does so much for riders and no one even knows it. Like, he's so under the radar with, like, helping young up and comers, people that, like, he sponsors people, and he's not really much on social media and stuff like that. But like, he's still kicking ass. He's still selling bikes. He's selling a lot of race bikes, selling a lot of street, sort of modern park and street stuff. Like, people still go there, and he still has stock. He's still doing it right. but I feel like he's not on social media like what some other shops are, but he's still like doing a lot for the scene,
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I obviously can't thank him enough for helping us when we were younger. Like we used to go there all the time, and then I did work experience there when I was in year 10, and then he hooked me up with Standard as well for a minute. Like, and so when we first opened the store, I was technically still kind of maybe on the Standard sort of flow roster, and like it was a bit awkward, and like we had to have a bit of a chat to him, like, hey, like we're gonna start a shop, like have we kind of got your blessing? Like we're not trying to compete with you, we just want to do something. We want to start our thing. We're not trying to put you out of business or try to like take your piece of the pie. We just want to do our thing. And he was like, yeah, go for it, which was awesome.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and like he means a lot to a lot of people in Sydney, so
yeah, he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, and a lot of, again, he's been doing it so long that people don't realize that he was and is a legitimate rider. Like he rode for Haro back in the day, like when in like the power days when it was like DMC rode for Haro, like 80s style. Like he was he was the fucking killer. Like, and a lot of people don't, because it's 2 or so generations removed from our sort of age.
Yeah.
We may not have known that,
I didn't know
and
that.
same with and he always supported the local like race scene as well. Like if you remember, like when I first started racing, I joined the Castle Hill BMX Club. And if you're a member, automatically he gave you 10% discount, which is like, like as a kid, I was like, this is great, this shop.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, awesome, man. Like, it seems like the Sydney scene, I definitely feel like looking from the outside in with that new Sydney Park, and like you said, like Chowgy, and there's dudes all around that are kind of, even like you said, Dermo before coming out of retirement, he seems like he's really psyched to, I don't know, prop up the scene in Campbelltown and whatnot.
I mean, and again, every little jam, Dermo's there, like he's such a supporter of BMX and a lifer, so, I think it's just, and he's talked about putting a couple of jams himself as well. Like he did that one, did the Halloween Campbelltown one.
That's right. Yeah, we sent some stuff for that.
Yeah, and that was like I went down to that, and I hadn't been to that park since closing the store. I felt a bit weird, if I'm honest. I was like, it's kind of like coming back to like an old girlfriend or something. Like, it was like kind of like it was like my shop was right there, and half the people here probably didn't even know that. Like And that's another weird thing, is people that have now been into it for a couple of years didn't even know I had a store. Or didn't even know Helen Wheels' existence. But like it was a great shop. Like people were there, they were stoked. People came from all over, B-Dog and Arthur and Weaponhead were there and stuff, and that was and people from Queensland were there, and like it was fucking rad.
Yeah, that's sick.
So
yeah, man,
more of that.
Definitely. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Well, I mean, there's probably a million people I could thank, but it's probably too many. So
yeah.
Like, I mean, like obviously everyone that ever stepped foot in Helen Wheels. And was a smiling face in the doors. I definitely thank everybody for that. I mean, I don't know, I feel very fortunate to have been able to actually like have a shop and exist, sort of make a living. Like, I mean, basically self-impoverished, I like to call it, instead of self-employed. I was very poor for a long time, and even now I'm only just sort of getting out of debt from closing the store down. I've had, it wasn't crazy, but like at the same time it wasn't great. So, but I do feel lucky to have lived that sort of life.
For sure.
BMX was my entire world. I didn't have to go to the factory. I didn't have so I felt lucky, even though half the customers are coming in the door are probably on twice as much money annually as what I was, but that wasn't important to me. And it was, I got to live the BMX dream. I mean, I didn't get to travel. I mean, like, I'm going to try to go to PA this year.
Oh,
I've
cool.
never been.
Oh, sick, man.
38 years old, and I've been wanting to go there since 96. I'm finally going to, now that COVID's done, and I'm finally going to be able to save the money and go. So, I mean, like, but I wouldn't trade, like, not being able to go overseas. Like, I did have a couple little trips, but like having the store and working 6 days a week by myself was quite limiting, but at the same time, it was very rewarding.
Totally, man. So,
yeah. I guess thanks to everyone that ever came in and everyone that helped us along the way, like Matt Holmes, Mike Daly, Rob McCann, for embarking on the journey with me, and kind of like I feel like I was sort of the quiet one, and they kind of were like, no, we're doing it. And I was like, okay, awesome. Maybe if they hadn't been so sort of gung ho, maybe it would have never happened. I wasn't definitely the one pushing for it. They were more like a bit more eager, and I was just like, okay, I was pretty shy kid. I thank the store for I sort of became who I was. Like I was very shy. Yeah. I still am a little bit, but having the store helped me come out of my shell a lot. That's cool.
Yeah, man. Well, just from me, I feel like same goes in terms of, I've worked in the shop for 17 years, something like that, pretty close to 16 years or whatever. And so you don't get to go and visit BMX shops very often, but yours is a BMX shop that I always really enjoyed going to. And it was something that after I come out of that shop, I'd be like inspired by what you had done. So I feel like you should feel, very proud to have facilitated people hopping on bikes for so many years, and you would have changed people's lives, like you said with Hunter, for example. He has gone on to be this full beast, and there's other dudes that I'm sure who don't even know about that would be like, man, that was sick when I first went to Hell on Wheels, and then I moved to Queensland and bought BMX bikes, and now I do this. So yeah, I think you've done a really good thing, man. So I'm excited to continue to see what you do, regardless of whether it's Hell on Wheels related or not, as long as you get to ride your bike.
Yeah. Well, I'm never gonna stop riding. So that's it. Until my body doesn't let me. But, that's sort of. I think we're all in the same. Sort of mindset for that. So thanks for inviting me.
No worries, man. Yeah, I'm psyched to have you on, and you can come on whenever you like. I'll be sick to talk about all sorts of shit. You can tell me how to set up my disc brakes good, and
well, I do a lot of that at the other job. So help you out if you need.
Cool, man. Awesome. Tom, thanks heaps for coming.
No, thank you, man. Cheers. Sick.